Okay, guys, so thank you. Thanks a lot. And now we're going to do a little test and see who survives. It's called the weakest link. Anyway, all right, so first we got a question for Christopher. And it's from Mr. Mikkels. And it's very important. So basically, what the question is how or what has been done to establish trust so that people actually put their data into systems like Freya ID or like Bank ID? Has there been a specific effort by the government or by the private sector to alleviate worries about people regarding trust in these systems, and what have you done?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it all comes down to the trust and the ability to transfer your physical identity into the digital world. That's the crucial part of it all. So for the banks, they had their own concerns when onboarding their customers. They made sure with physical meetings and physical vettings that an individual having a bank account is actually that person. So it was in the bank's own interest that the persons that were their customers were properly vetted. And then that trust that was established by being a banking customer could actually be expanded to other industries and to government services, etc. However, when other players came in to the market, such as Freya EID, we need to just like in India, find a system on how to onboard our customers or users into the system. And there's a governmental framework of trust that is really strict, and you have to abide by a lot of rules and processes in order to achieve this kind of certification. And it includes documentation of your ID document and checking the validity of it. We do some biometrical checks as well. And eventually the user needs to go to some physical outlet and show his ID, and they check that it's correct, and then with all that established, we can issue that digital identity. But that has been one of the reasons why the banks kind of had a monopoly on this for so many years. There was no other company that could match their widespread network of branches. So we found a way. We partnered with the company who has 2,000 outlets. They have the infrastructure, and thanks to the cooperation with them, we can offer vetting service throughout Sweden. So that is the crucial part.
So kind of elaborating a bit, has there been any like publicity campaign or anything done to establish trust in the public, either by the government or by private entities? Not perhaps in a specific solution, but in general in the EID ecosystem?
From the India?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, maybe for the panel, yeah.
Yes. So from the India perspective, I would like to say that there has a lot been a perception management of the people. There has been media campaigns, as Carlos already pointed out. The electronic media, the social media have been amply used in order to create awareness for the program. Now the trust part, that's a kind of a curious question, because any technology that comes up always creates some sort of an intimidation for the users, be it artificial intelligence or for that matter, Internet of Things. So in the same manner, the technology did create fear in the minds of the people. I remember one story of my friend whose information details were presented on the Facebook, and she was like scared. Oh my God, my photo is there, everything is there. So this does create a problem, but the government has done everything in order to create trust among the people in this ecosystem of Aadhaar through creating media campaigns and publicity campaigns. Also, the entire architecture of the system has been in the public domain for the people to understand, and it will take time for the people, to come to terms with the security architecture of Aadhaar.
Okay, thank you. Carlos, do you want to add something regarding establishing trust? I mean, Estonia is doing it even with citizens from all over the world, not only from Estonia.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting thing on how to engage people, engage society, on how to trust with the ID scheme, because it's something that generates a lot of issues or trust issues. And in Estonia, what I have seen is that even the president and the Prime Minister are making marketing about using the ID scheme. So I remember 1 year ago during previous elections, I saw the Prime Minister it was everywhere on internet and on TV, and he said like, I will show you how to vote on internet using the ID scheme, and it's safe, I'm using it. And I'm a person of, well, he didn't say it, but you can understand that he's a person of interest, and if he's using it, then you as a citizen, as a regular citizen, well, you might trust as well. And we have the former president of Estonia. He's one of the leaders in digital identity in the world and cybersecurity. And he's promoting all over the world that you have to have a you on the internet, a trusted you on internet that will build your face in any transaction. So it's also a great campaign. And there was also a lot of campaigns that they were even doing in supermarkets. They were putting people, it's even the director now of e-residency, he was working in those campaigns. They put them in the entrance of supermarket. They were grabbing people, old people, young people, and they were telling them, okay, I will teach you, give me 5 minutes of your time, and I will teach you how to use your ID, and so you will know what is an ID scheme. And they were just showing them, and every day, every hour, they were just teaching them. Of course, it's not a thing that it's solved in a matter of months or in a short term. It takes a lot of years, but it's possible.
Okay. So another common thing that questions that I'm getting is regarding Mexico and why here yes and why here no certain things. I do want to mention the next block, it will be precisely about answering that question. So there's a few questions regarding situation in Mexico. I'm not going to put them in this block, but I promise to put them in the next one. So another very interesting one, actually very simple one, it's basically, the different schemes, how do you deal with fraud? Basically, what happens if someone compromises an EID, a Free EID, or an e-residence, or an Aadhaar card? What are the risks, and what are some of the countermeasures you have so that it's not a catastrophic loss in case it happens? Anyone in the panel can start.
So for us, we have a liability, and that's part of the kind of the offer we're giving to our online services or relying parties, as we call it. If we guarantee the trust of this particular identity, then we actually also need to be responsible if it is not. But in Sweden, in general, the technology has not really been compromised. There's been no real hacker attacks to these systems. Rather, the problem has been around social engineering, where you have these fraudsters, and Jan is going to talk a bit more about that. They're really it's kind of industrialized. They have like call centers. They call people and they say, "Oh, it's from the bank. You're being victim of a fraud. Please bring out your electronic identity. We need to move the money from your account now." And people, "Oh, really? Yes, move the money to Ukraine now." And it's like, okay. Maybe it's a bit longer conversation, but that's basically how the fraud is happening. And then we can take measures to prevent that by, adding, for example, geolocation, that you need to be on the same, site with your mobile as your computer is, or other, remedies to address this. But the technology has been really secure. So what we need to address is that behavior thing, and that is, it's human beings. So I think that is the most tricky part of it all. But that's kind of fraud in general. If you can trick someone into giving away their money, it doesn't matter if it's protected by the most secure encryption in the world if you hand over the keys yourself.
As far as
Please.
in India, the only problem that has been impacting the services of Aadhaar is the identity theft. There has been no incident of hacking or fraudulent activities. There has been awareness campaigns to preclude people from sharing their identity numbers in the social media. The only problem, as I said, is the identity theft. Now, this technology is a work in progress. It has been evolving as the problems it faces. So in the recent past, there have been a lot of steps that have been taken, like introducing facial recognition, and also creating, as I said in my presentation, also creating virtual ID and the UID token, and the kind of using that virtual ID for a very temporary for a temporary period of time, and not sharing the actual Aadhaar number with a third-party service agency. So this prevents the entire database getting created in a parallel manner in the service agencies for identity theft and selling and buying of that new oil that has occurred in terms of data creation. So so identity theft is one thing that has been targeted the most in order to make the system more secure. Yeah.
Well, I think they already mentioned that the weakest link in the system is always us. And the opportunities to break an ID scheme is mostly because of the bad use of the user or misusage. In Estonia, there have been cases or attempts to abuse the system, but they have been punished. There was a case of a policeman that abused her power on the ID scheme, but to check on a boyfriend, because she was not trusting him, so she was checking where he was going, what he was doing, and of course the system understood that something wrong was happening. They told this guy that the police was checking, and he said, well, they don't have any reasons for checking me, because in Estonia, citizens are all owners of their own data, and said, well, they don't have any rights to be checking on me. So I ordered an investigation of what's going on. So 24 hours later, when he came back home, his girlfriend was not at home because she was in jail already. But of course, these are cases that you can see how the system can be violated, and it's just because of the users. A social engineering attack, a social technical attack is the most probable. Also, I will not say names because probably some representatives of this company might be here. But in Estonia, there was indeed a compromise of the chip card, or the chip that is in the card. And it has to be renewed and certificates, and it was a big issue. Of course, nothing happened, but it was a possible issue, and it was fault precisely of this company that was delivering the chips in the card. And one last thing that I wanted to mention, it went out of my mind, so we can continue.
So I just wanted to add
yes, of course, yeah, go ahead.
something. But I mean, there's one thing looking at the risks, and obviously there are risks in everything related to human behavior. But first of all, an electronic identity is about a gazillion times more secure than a username and a password. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is actually with the use of an electronic identity, we could, eliminate huge, numbers of crime with very easy measures. So I'll give you two examples. For example, in Sweden we have around 200,000 crimes reported each year, and we could eliminate half of them by the end of the month if the banks and the government made two things. So one of the things is, the banks issuing credit cards. They always say you don't put your ATM code on the card. Well, of course not, but you do it. You put the CVV card on the code. So with a system where you actually approve all the credit card transactions with a mobile electronic identity, which is really easy, that would basically eliminate all the online credit card fraud. And the second thing is credit fraud. I showed you in my presentation that you can go to an online bank in Sweden and you can get 10 or 100,000 euros or whatever you're good for, so to say, as a loan paid out in a matter of hours. And if you come in there with a fake identity, someone has made an ID theft of my identity, they will get the money, of course, and I will have to pay. However, in order for that credit company to issue that loan, they need to make an official credit check. And you would assume that you as a user would be able to approve that. But no, the Swedish law is saying no. We give more rights to the credit companies making whatever checks they want. If it's a fraudster or not, we do not care. So if we could connect each time someone wants to take a loan in your name, you have to approve that this credit check will be done or not. If you say no, there will be no loan issued. Quite easy. With those two measures, you could eliminate 100,000 frauds a year in Sweden, a lot of human suffering, etc., and a lot of money involved. So I think you should look at the risks, but I think rather look at the opportunities, because what happens if you add more trust and security to the online world, people start using more and more services, and the whole economy flourishes from that. So I think look at the positive perspective is rather more interesting.
With your intervention, I remember it's very fast. Also in Estonia, well, if you lose, let's say, your ID card, in other countries will be a real issue because you have your information in the ID card. In Estonia, they don't collect any information inside the ID card. So in presentations, in some other presentations, I was able to pass my ID card to people. They were able to take photographs. They were able to do whatever they want to the card. And if I lose it in the street, nothing happens because the person that collects it or that robs it or something, they cannot do absolutely anything because the levels of security. And even if what you were mentioning with the banks, it really happens in Estonia because let's say that someone tries to take on my account, identify somehow physically on the bank saying that it's me, it passes. Still, if they want to make some change or remove some money or send it somewhere, they still have to check it on my digital identity. So it will, at the end, have to come by me. So I said, well, no, there's someone in the bank saying that it's not me, but at the end, it will be me, the one that is checking, because I have the only passwords that will allow me to enter that code. But it's, again, because what you were saying, that is important, banks and government are working jointly. That is a thing that doesn't happen in a lot of countries, and it's a bad thing.
Yeah, okay. So actually that's a good one because it leads to the next. By the way, that question was from Grupo Peña Verde, so thank you for that. And they also have another one, which is really interesting, which is actually regarding how normally, what are the instruments or the ways in which users can present credentials. Cards, mobile phones, certificates, etc. What formats can they use, and which ones are the most popular in each of these three countries? Don't know if you want to start, Abhishek.
Can you come again?
Yes, basically, I mean, how do I present my Aadhaar credentials to banks, government?
Right.
What instruments can I use for that? Yeah.
All right. So Aadhaar has multiple layers of identity authentication. Firstly, we have to present our iris, our fingerprints, and facial recognition that has been introduced recently whenever we go to a bank or any service agency. Now, what this precludes is that you can, even if the card is with somebody, it cannot be used to have any fraudulent activity when it comes to availing the services of these institutions. So these different biometrics, they provide separate layers of security, and these are the instruments that are generally used.
Because actually it's a big card. I've seen that it's sort of, they print off a card,
yes.
But it's not like, it doesn't have a chip. You cannot insert it anywhere. It's
no.
just like a code that you can scan.
The entire password is with you. You have the fingerprints,
yes.
You have the iris with you.
So you go to the bank, this is my Aadhaar, so you come scan it, and then I put my face.
Exactly.
And then you say,
yes.
Great, Carlos.
Without the fingerprint, no authentication happens.
All right, so what happens in Sweden, Christopher? How is it done?
Well, in Sweden it's, but first of all I want to ask, is it possible to use it online?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So how,
the inline transaction is, the entire transaction is online. It's an online digital platform. So when you go, yes, but you cannot transmit, sitting on, when I sit at home and try to authenticate using a fingerprint, I cannot do it. Okay. I have to go to a bank physically because that information, that database, it has been dedicated for that bank, particular bank.
Yeah. Okay.
Through authentication service agencies. So from a laptop at home, you cannot do it. There are particular authorized agencies who do it.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe perhaps the big difference is in the beginning it was certificates on your local computer, and then it was smart card readers, extra devices and extra stuff. And then this wonderful little thing came along, and this kind of blew away all the other methods. So you have your identity securely stored on this and connected, with encryption to the backend server, and that makes it possible for you to sign in with using your fingerprint. You can use a PIN code if you wish to do that. But basically, it's the mobile phone. I would say that 90% is the bearer of your credentials. And the good thing is that if I forget my wallet when I leave my home, I don't go back. But if I forget this, I definitely go back. I mean, I sleep with this, I live with this. It's almost my best friend. So I guess I'm not alone with that. But so it's really there's a convenient way to do it if you make the technology secure enough.
And there are keys, right?
I would like to add one thing. Only when you want to have a new bank account, you have to go to a bank.
Yes.
But when you have to transact, you can do it from anywhere.
So it's
using
only
a
when you're
mobile
enrolling you have to go,
Yes.
and after that you can do it. But just, yeah, all right. So
Yes.
what about Estonia? How can you present your credentials?
Well, it's just basically the ID card and mobile ID that, of course, as you said, is the future, and it can eliminate a lot of problems in countries where you adapted it. That there's not possible way to put a specific or a unique ID card. Mobile ID will be a great solution. I agree completely. And well, in order to get this, you need, as in India, present yourself, give biometrics, give your information only one time, and then the government get already this information. You get your ID card, you can get your mobile ID as well, and that's all. It's extremely simple.
So one question. So the enrollment actually, it can be done not necessarily. You don't have to go to a government office and do the enrollment. I'm thinking three parties that you could go to a private sector entity like a bank.
Yes.
And enroll with the.
Exactly. Aadhaar is a unique private-public, kind of combination.
Yes.
So there are separate enrollment agencies which are both from the private and the public sector, which do the enrollment for you.
Yes.
So you have to go to the nearest enrollment agency which is registered with the government, and you can do your enrollment there.
Okay.
I think I understand your question now a little bit better. Yeah, in Estonia it's like that, because the government is the one ensuring your digital identity.
Will you go to a government office or
Yeah,
no?
you have to go to a governmental office.
Oh, so you have
in
to.
order, yes, to check they will make your background check, everything that they need, and recollect all the data that is necessary.
Okay.
But it's because the CA, the Certificate Authority, is also working with or part of the government. And let's say in England, there are several CAs, so the people will interact directly with the private CA of their convenience, whatever they trust more. So well, there are just different schemes, but basically is the same idea and same security behind it.
So there's a bit hybrid now, because I guess that is government kind of does the enrollment and has the database. In this case, private parties can do the enrollment, but the government has the database.
Yes.
And in Sweden, also private parties can do enrollment and private parties can have the database.
Exactly.
In India, private parties do not have a database. There is a
Yeah.
central
All right.
database which is maintained by the government.
Okay, okay,
It's only can be accessed for the information.
okay. So, all right, so thank you. There's actually an interesting question here, which is very relevant in Mexico, as we'll see in the next one. So, can people that don't live in the countries, can they also use it? Because obviously in Mexico we have around 12 million people, Mexicans that live outside Mexico. It's quite relevant. So, can those three countries? I guess Estonia, yes, but the other ones?
Yeah, so I would like to narrate an interesting anecdote. I landed in Mexico just 3 weeks ago, and I had to file my income tax back in India. Now I was faced with the challenge as to how I do it, because the last date was 31st August. So the Aadhaar came to the rescue, actually. I had my mobile phone, my SIM was working, so I did not have to physically send my filled up form, the printed application back to India. I just filled it online, e-verified online through my Aadhaar, and I got the OTP. I fed the OTP, and my entire process was done. So even if I'm living in Mexico, I can still file my returns.
Great. What about the other two? Can they be used abroad by citizens abroad?
Yeah, we have a way of onboarding people that are not residents or citizens of Sweden. They have another identifier, not the personal identity number as the Swedish citizens has, but that can be used as a unique identifier. They go through the same process and they will get the same rights. But as we move into eIDAS in 3 weeks, I think a lot of that problem might be solved by foreign citizens coming with their own EIDs into the Swedish systems through the node, the hub, so to say.
Okay.
Well, I
Yes.
just want to put an example. Last year, 2 years ago, I opened a company in Estonia while being in Barcelona. I handle it all around the world. This company I have been handling here in Mexico, and now I'm going to close it, but also from here, from Mexico. So
Why close it?
I'm just tired. It takes too much time. But in this example that you can do it everything online while you have a secure ID. Everything is possible.
Yes.
And in India, you need not be a citizen to get enrolled with Aadhaar. If you stay in India for more than 182 days, you become a resident and you can enroll with Aadhaar. The only thing is that you need to have somebody next to you who can authorize it for you. Let's say if I'm staying in Mexico for more than 182 days and I can meet Carlos and I can get into Aadhaar.
Okay. Well, I think that's all we have for questions now. All the questions are very interesting ones. The ones who put their email, I'll make sure to make them available to the speakers so they can be answered. The speakers will be around. We actually have a break after this, so you can speak to them directly. And last thing, I just want to thank Carlos, Christopher, and Abhishek for their time and obviously the great presentations. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.